All right, another Fabric Tip Friday. As you know, most of the time in the shop we're doing Cubs and different things, but this is a Champ, a late model Champ, 72 model, which is basically almost the same thing as a Citarbria. And people will call and ask me about how do you cover and do the back part on a Citarbria or a Champ. I'm going to tell you just the way we do it. Me and Brian has done it. I'm over here next door at Central Arkansas Aircraft Repair, and he's happened to be doing one. And AirTech, we don't get into the telling you how each plane is supposed to be covered. You are supposed to have an IA helping you. All of these backyard cover jobs are actually illegal unless you have an IA signing your stuff off. So we're not out here to tell you exactly which way to lap stuff over or whatever. I know this video is probably going to stir up a bunch of garbage on the internet about how stuff is supposed to be done or not, but taking effect, normally the way a Champ is done in the old days, everybody likes these envelopes. We have just never had good luck turning out a show winner with an envelope on a Citarbria because you have a seam down the open back side. Now you can get away with it on a Cub and you can hide the seam, but it's really hard to do when you're stretching it. And if you know anything about covering, that seam will sit there and move side to side and everything. With AirTech glue system, we put glue on all the structure parts. You don't want fabric wrapping over something dry that never had glue. You want that always wetted because we don't do a bunch of brush fill or glue fill like the other systems. We go straight to our urethane primer. And if you put a primer on that part that is over something dry and not glued in, it's going to wick it into the dry part and you're going to have pinholes. So that's just a little extra there. I've made a video on that. What we normally do, he puts the glue on everything and he's got one side. This is 72-inch wide. We just got through measuring it, and Brian said that if you had a skylight, you might get away with it because up there is the widest point as far as trying to reach all the way over here and go all the way down the side. We pulled a tape measure and gave an inch wrap around all the way around, and it was just right there with about an inch hanging over. So it probably was not going to happen up at that tall point. So what we do is we let this first piece come around this stringer. Now for you guys that jump up and down, oh, you're not legal to glue to a non-structural part. That's true, but what we're doing is just putting this on here temporary to get the other one lapped over. Because what we're doing with nowadays glues, with our system, with Superflight, with Stewart system, all the glues are so much better than the old dope days that what we're doing is gluing together an envelope, but we're using the aircraft as the pattern. Reason I say that, when you wrap around this first piece, you don't wet none of these stringers in. When you get this glued around, you can see some of these little lines here. He just lightly used an iron at probably 250 and just enough to get the wrinkles out. You do not want to get this tight because if you do, that stringer is fixing to bow and look terrible. It's a wood stringer. It's pretty strong. Actually, these are American Champions here. These are from Ron. They're a little bigger, but the width is about the same. And the side pull, if you don't watch, you'll have that bow on you. So he just laps that around and just lightly. And all you're doing is getting it smoothed out so that your top piece will not be gluing onto a wrinkled part. None of this is glued yet, so it can flow around. He's went all the way around everything and fitted this side. When you come to the back, the first piece going on is easy because he can wrap all the way around this structure. And when he gets right into here, it's kind of the tricky spot. Kind of wrap it around until you're just about at a level point here. And, you know, just kind of terminate it right here. All right, he's going to do the same thing on the other side. And he's going to come up to here, not going to shrink it too much. And when he's gluing this around, he's taking note to go all the way around into this. And when this piece goes on, it's a little harder to do because he'll start right here and he'll start trying to bridge over. So you're going to mark out here an inch or so, mark your line. And as you know with AirTech, you got to stay in your lines with the glue. You don't want your glue all slopping and brushing out here because it'll show up through your primer. He's going to put his glue line out here and he's going to pull that fabric around and take a pencil mark and mark where that is. This is a weird curve right here. When he's going to start down here just about where it's flat. So he'll start gluing on to right here. And we're talking about this side. And when he comes around this, it's going to make this turn, and it's going to try to do a weird turn right here. Sometime you may have to put a little piece of cardboard behind an iron or whatever, but you're going to want that to glue down and wrap around, and then it's going to just kind of bridge across there. You're going to lightly shrink it, do the same thing. Then, a lot of times you're putting 2-inch tapes on everything. Right here, to make this an even better envelope, he'll mark this down, and these will probably get a 3-inch tape. So a 3-inch tape, half of that, start at your center line and put you some marks down through it, because this is a curve. You can't pull a chalk line or nothing. He's going to probably go, if you go from the center down, that's 1.5 inches. All right. He's probably going to let this center top piece, going to lay it up here. You're going to have to put more glue onto this in your bed of glue. Going to probably go down 1.5 inches and make your mark to put your glue, get you a good glue bed, probably 3 to 4 passes of thin glue. He's going to lay that top piece on, and there's several ways. You could probably lay the top piece and just barely tack it and lay it down, and you can see that mark through it. But this first piece, usually you just take a scissor, straight scissor, or a razor edge or whatever, and he's going to lay this first piece down about 1/4 inch shy, because you don't want it going all the way to 1.5 inches and then trying to make a tape go 1.5 inches. Now you got a double stacked edge. So let this one go about 1.25 inches. He's going to glue it all down. If there's any little puckers, take the very tip of a knife and kind of get them out and work your way up and get that really glued down. Then you're going to, from that outside mark all the way back up here, put your other mark, and that's your 3-inch tape line. Now you're going to lightly shrink this one just like you did here, because you don't want any wrinkles. Now that you're lapped onto this and glued, you can probably shrink it a little tighter. I would say up to probably 300, because you don't want to have it so loose that you do your big final shrink and it tries to pull out under your tape. But he'll mark that last tape, and you may even take an iron right at the edge of that straight edge that you cut and kind of iron it in, but you're going to need more glue on the top, putting the tape down. Then he'll put the 3-inch tape on that, and it will overlap. The reason you don't use a pink under it is you'll see that pinked through the tape. And it's a lot of times best just go ahead with the medium tapes on this, and they don't telescope through. And once that is really glued on and let it dry for a full 24 hours, then you can come back and start doing your 350-degree shrink and everything. And for the guys that saying it's illegal to, you got to glue it to a structure. Well, once this whole lap is put in my situation, it's just glued to this, stuck. It ain't doing nothing. Once you have stretched everything and it's moved, and you're going to go in and wet all of these that you had glue on, because you're going to actually put a line and put more glue. In a sense, you could let this one be just like that. If there was a physical way of going inside and razor blading this loose, it would still be fine. All we did was put this on there, holding it long enough to glue this over. Now we have a solid piece of fabric with an overlap seam with a tape that's even more overlapping, and all the way around. So we basically made a glued envelope out of it. And all of our PMA testing are approved for how much an overlap. You got your 4313, tells you how much of an overlap, and that's actually referring to the old style glue. Ours holds a lot better than that does. So that's the same thing as, people argue, well, they're taking just a single sewing machine line or something. You're depending on a seam not ripping loose, with a envelope. So that's basically, once you get that on, then you can stretch it all the way around. Like you said, we get that a lot. The gurus, the keyboard kings, they got a few keywords that they know what to argue on about gluing to that structure, because that's where I was talking with Clyde Smith, and he'd approached people about that on the J3 Cub. And he kind of told him, he said, well, when you come up here on a J3, they was arguing with him, you cannot glue to the little gingerbread. Well, on a J3, guess what's right here? It's a gingerbread. There's nothing else to glue to here. So you are gluing to that lightweight, whether it's considered structure or not. Just because a piece of gingerbread is in a turtle deck, they're saying it's not structure, but all of a sudden the same part up there welded on magically becomes structure. All you're doing is putting together an envelope, but that's kind of covers doing a Champ fuselage or a Citarbria. They're basically the same way. This one has no skylight, so naturally it takes all the way to the top. Once you put that on, naturally you're going to take your bias tape and go around this, and if it's bias, it will spread out and make this little transition. I know I did one on the Cubs to where you had this situation and you wanted to put this patch, because you are going to have fabric making a seam right here. So if you was to going to make an oval patch, don't make the oval cut out of the fabric this way. Cut the oval at a 45. That turns it into a bias piece, and it's amazing how when it goes in this curve, it will spread out on both sides and it will wet right in. That's just one way. That's kind of the way we do it, and we've proven that it's faster. Turns out a nice airplane, and you know, the main key is a customer, when he's paying $75 to $100 an hour for shop labor, he wants you to be faster.